Who is my neighbor? By now you've all seen this picture, this heart-wrenching image of the Syrian toddler who drowned, along with a dozen other Syrians who were seeking refuge in Greece. This presentation is dedicated to Alan Kurdi, who died the 2nd of September 2015 at the age of 3 years and awoke the consciousness of a world. But there are so many little boys like Alan Kurdi, so many boatloads and railway cars and crowds of pedestrians, that even a story as poignant as his can ultimately leave us unmoved. It's too easy for us to view the refugee crisis as a foreign problem. After all, we have enough problems on our own doorstep. Why should we trouble ourselves with the catastrophes other countries have brought on themselves? Who is my neighbor? Is my neighbor someone who lives here in Halifax or in Nova Scotia? Maybe our concept of neighbor stretches as far as the breadth of Canada. But God's neighborhood is global. God's kingdom knows no borders, and as citizens of that kingdom, we have 5 good reasons to embrace refugees as our neighbors. First, regardless of their faith or circumstances, refugees are persons made in God's own image. Second, many of our spiritual ancestors were themselves refugees. Abraham, Joseph, Daniel, Moses, David, and Jesus Christ, who fled into Egypt as a baby to escape from King Herod. And as many Nova Scotians, many of us can trace our personal ancestry back to when we were once immigrants or refugees. The third reason for embracing refugees is that God commands us to do so. Caring for foreigners was part of the cultural fabric of ancient Israel, something that marked the Hebrews as the people of God. We see this in Leviticus, where we read this command: "The foreigner who resides with you shall be to you as the citizen among you. You shall love the foreigner as yourself, for you were foreigners in the land of Egypt." And the Bible explicitly points out God's deep concern for refugees. Again in Leviticus we read that God executes justice for the orphan and the widow, and loves the strangers, providing them food and clothing. But that's not the extent of God's love for strangers seeking a better life among His people. He requires us to fulfill His great love for the stranger. You and I shall also love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Jesus builds this tradition of welcoming outsiders into God's kingdom. He commands His followers to show wide-armed hospitality to those who need it the most. In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus tells His followers, "When you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors, in case they may invite you in return, and you would be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and you will be blessed because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." Your congregation can make a great difference by sponsoring a refugee family. Other Nova Scotian churches are excited about welcoming refugees, and the love they're showing for strangers is contagious and spreading to their communities as well. The number of refugees from Syria has now topped 4 million people worldwide. There are 20 million refugees that have been displaced from their homes. The Convention of Atlantic Baptist Churches is responding by committing to sponsoring 50 families in 2015. We're part of a wider Canadian Baptist story where 100 families will be sponsored across Canada. The hope is that this will be exceeded. The Halifax Region United Baptist Association has formed a refugee sponsorship committee to assist churches who wish to make it their mission to be involved in the sponsorship of refugees. And whether it is a single church, a partnership of churches, or a partnership of churches and community, the Refugee Sponsorship Committee is available as a resource to guide you through the sponsorship and resettlement process. To find out how you can take the first step toward refugee sponsorship, contact any one of these people who can help you navigate the process.